How's it going, and welcome to No Fun Allowed's guide series on Waterdeep Dragon Heist, a 5th edition module. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the intro to Chapter 1, basically just wrapping up a few things that we had kind of glossed over, and just looking at the first chapter as a whole. Of course, there's going to be a ton of spoilers, players don't watch this, DMs that want added insight, go ahead and stick around. So the first thing that I wanted to go over here is, your players start in a tavern, yes. But not everyone is down for that sort of style of play. Some people want at least a little bit of hint of a backstory. So for that, I would go ahead and ask the individual person, are they from Waterdeep, or did they just blow into town? If they are familiar with Waterdeep, then you can go ahead and hand them that sweet Volos in Kyridian, and that's going to inform them so much about the life around here. It tells them so much about the world that they're about to inhabit. And you can go ahead and hand them a copy of the Code Legal. Now, if they aren't residents of Waterdeep, if they just rolled in, only have been here for a while, then I think it's perfectly reasonable to not give them that much information. And one thing I would strongly ask is, what do you do once you're in Waterdeep? What is your goal? Are you just simply passing by, or are you trying to find something? If that is the case, if they are looking for something, then there is nowhere better to look than the Yawning Portal. And you get that person there to the Yawning Portal before the adventure arrives, for a specific reason. It's because you get them latched onto one of the Yawning Portal friendly faces here. Between all these fine individuals that are regulars at the Yawning Portal, there is a bevy and wealth of information that they can provide to the adventure and to the individual about the world that they're about to explore. This is an excellent way to go ahead and rope them into the adventure. If you have someone that just rolled into town and they meet Yogg or Stonefist, then it's going to be so great when you run that first session, because you say, hey, Yogger's your friend and she's getting beat up. What do you do? And then you can go ahead and have that relationship build up. If you have someone that is a Waterdeep resident and they have a strong affinity to the city, then perhaps they make friends with Joust or Silvermane and hope to join the Lord's Alliance someday. If your players have any inclination to dive into the Yawning Portal itself, Obaya Uday is a great way to incentivize them to get more powerful, so when they finally reach the high enough level required, they can dive right in. So whether your PCs are new to town or have been here for their whole lives, making friends with at least one of these people is just such a great way to rope them into the adventure and get them there right when you have that session 1. Now, of course, the beginning part of this campaign can be seen as railroady. That requires player buy-in. You have to tell your players up front, yes, there is a quest that is going to be presented to you, and you're going to pursue that quest. If they are on board for that, then go ahead and do it. But if they don't like that style of adventure, then I'm sorry to say that Waterdeep Dragon Heist is not for your players. There requires a certain buy-in to the adventure at hand that does have a strict little line to follow. And if they're not willing to accompany that, then this adventure is not going to work out. So whether your players are already an established party of adventurers that is about to explore, or if they are in fact a whole bunch of random strangers that come together to form one awesome epic journey together, you need to have that buy-in, and of course the Yawning Portal is an extremely great place to start. Now when the players accept that quest from Volo, they need to be shown that this is a living city. This is a hustle and bustle kind of place. This city never sleeps. There's always commotion going on, so make sure you have that commotion going on. Make sure you describe in detail the drays that are always passing by, the people always trying to hawk their wares, and the people that are loud and boisterous, and the guards that patrol around the areas, and just make everything feel real. Make them feel like they are stepping into a world that's lived in, not a world that's living for them. Now your players follow the trail, they get to the Zentarum hideout, which is now controlled by a whole bunch of Xanathar Kenku. Your players deal with them in however way they see fit, and then the guards arrive. The guards arriving is a great way for people to get accustomed to how this city works. Of course, in most adventures, you're not dealing with the law. In most adventures, you're out there in the middle of the wilderness or in a dank, dark dungeon, and you don't worry about the legal process of things. And it's at that point, I highly recommend that Captain Stagit hand them a copy of the Code Legal and say, hey, I know you kind of did this thing. I'm going to let it slide this one time, but read this Code Legal. And upon handing this to your players, they'll gloss over and see, okay, here's definitely the rules that we have to abide by. There's certain things we cannot do, and more importantly, there's some things that we can't get caught for. Of course, every single group of players that's ever looked at this thing always sees the loopholes that they'll try to get through. Obviously, use your best judgment. There's some things that weren't written on this page but would just make sense. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you'll know it when you see it. Another thing I failed to mention was the tokens. So here's the thing. This city is jam-packed with tons and tons and tons of named NPCs. And of course, the book isn't going to come with all of that art. So here, for example, we get Floon and Groomshar, two individuals that have relative importance. Groomshar, obviously, he's just a one-off villain, but Floon, he could, be useful later. So I strongly recommend, of course, that you go to the Discord and get yourself a copy of some beautiful image, because there's always someone that's right there on the spot that'll be able to get you that art, or you can go ahead and search it for yourself. And I promise you, giving art to all of these named NPCs is going to go a long way. It's going to make them more personable. It's going to make them a lot more rememberable. And something that's kind of slipped my mind here. Your players storm through this area and they see it. They see Groomshar beating up on poor Floon, and there they see a Mind Flayer that is petting a brain. Some players may be dashing and crazy and decide to go ahead and attack the Mind Flayer. What does the Mind Flayer do? Of course, if you have the Mind Flayer do anything, that's going to be an instant wipe, because if he, does his Mind Blast, he's going to kill everybody. So what do you do in that case? Just give him a little spell that allows him to teleport. Simple as that. In addition, of course, you can see here that your players could in fact come through a secret door. And of course, that kind of ruins what's going on here. Your players go through this secret door, and then they find Nihiloor. Nihiloor, at that point, will have to go past the party to activate the teleporter and then walk through it. And of course, if you've got players that think this is the adventure, they're going to dive right on in which case it's going to be a huge problem. Your players just show up in the middle of the Xanathar Guild at level 1. That's a disaster. So your players are cunning, and they make their way through that area and start making their way from west to east. And there they surprise Nihiloor and Groomshar and Floon. What does Nihiloor do? Well, when you know it, it's just so convenient. Hidden behind a curtain in Area 10 here, there just so happens to be a secret wall. A secret wall that can only be accessed by psionic magic. Nihiloor makes his way in here, he presses a button, he goes through the secret door, and that secret door leads further into the tunnels beyond. Your players see this Mind Flayer go beyond this curtain, and then they deal with Groomshar, and they deal with the Intellect Devourer, and maybe they think to themselves, let's chase after him. They draw back the curtain, and there they see an empty room. Of course, that's going to get them looking around, and that's when you can go ahead and reward them. If they search around hard enough, using an investigation check, a perception check, or just common sense, you can go ahead and reveal that behind one of the bricks is a strange rune, an object that seems alien and foreign to you. You have no way of understanding what this is. And that'll drive your players wild, and that's great, because maybe they'll go ahead and start researching some Mind Flayer stuff. Maybe they'll go ahead and try and make friends or enemies of some Mind Flayers and try and get a piece of this information, and they may come back to this place later. But the good news is they can't affect it right now, and of course, future problems are for future you. And lastly, for a retrospective here, let's go ahead and talk about the conclusion to Volo's quest. Volo says, hey, I don't have enough gold, but I'll go ahead and give you this deed. Of course, some people are going to say, yeah, that's awesome, and take it blindly. But of course, there's going to be a ton of people that say, hey, let's go ahead and inspect this place first. Make sure you're not doing anything fishy. If that is the case, then you're put in an awkward position. Does Volo say, okay, let's go ahead and check it out, and then your players see the dump that it is? If that is the case, your players may not buy into it. Your players may say, yeah, we don't want this piece of property, and go ahead and either sell the deed or demand Volo give them actual gold. So that is something you need to consider with your individual group. Me personally, I know my players may get a little skeptical, so I would go ahead and have Volo say, meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. I'm a little bit busy, I'm preoccupied, I got this, I got that, I got a place to go, people to see. And make sure that Volo just, bails out of the player's way, using any combination of his words or magic that he needs to get away from them. In the morning, he goes ahead and signs over the deed, and then says, hey, congratulations to your home, and, oh yeah, I got a meeting with someone important, I gotta go. And Volo is out just like that. So your players get this deed, and they say, hey, let's go ahead and check it out. And they show up and they see this. Yes, it is a pretty awesome, structural house, but the issue is that the place is destitute. And once they hear that total, once they hear that this place is going to cost a lot of gold to, renovate, they may go ahead and just say, yeah, let's go ahead and sell it. This adventure isn't necessarily tied to Trollskull Manor. You don't need to have it there, but it makes things flow a lot more smoothly. It allows for your players to have a home base to truly call their own. It allows for NPCs to meet with the parties at any given time without any notice. And of course, it allows you to mess with their dwelling at any point you desire. So once again, I would strongly recommend having that out-of-game discussion and say, hey, if you want an awesome house, this is the way to do it. Because you are not ever going to get any opportunity like this ever again. Something like this would cost you a fortune, and that's a fortune that you don't have. If your players are dead set on not inheriting the Trollskull Manor, then of course there is some revisions you're going to have to make, specifically for Fireball. You're going to have to change just a little bit. Not much, but enough. All in all, Chapter 1 is an excellent start to this beautiful and cute module, but of course it requires that player buy-in. You need to get that going, and once you have it, you are set. It is a nice little adventure. They get to go up against some big bads, they make some friends, and they make some enemies, and it's just classic. And to top it all off, they can actually get a pretty good size haul of loot, and of course they inherit the Trollskull Manor, an awesome place which hopefully they are going to renovate pretty soon, but that is for the Chapter 2 stuff. So go ahead and tell me, did you find Chapter 1 captivating, or do you think it's a little too on the rails? Do you think that there should have been a different way on how to approach any of these situations? Do you like the fact that they go up against so many foes at such a low level? And what do you think about all the NPCs they get to meet? Go ahead and tell me all these things because I want to know. That is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my amazing patrons up here. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. That is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.